Coming in at number 10 in my rankings of the soap operas for October 2021 is another heavy hitter in the soap opera game, this time from England. EastEnders is number 10 towards the bottom of my soap opera rankings for the month of October. If you've ever heard of a soap opera from England, if you're American, it's probably either Coronation Street or EastEnders, because those are Charlie the two biggest names outside of England, in my opinion. But it's not looking great for EastEnders these days, because unlike Young and the Restless, who was at the bottom of my rankings, their ratings have managed to stay up this year compared to last year. But EastEnders has free falled in the ratings, and a lot goes into that. Their schedule's been kind of fucked up, and they've had shorter episodes because of that. And COVID just really messed up that show. But really, it all sounds like a bunch of excuses to me. Sorry, it's not working for me, those excuses that I've heard regarding EastEnders and their lousy ratings and the lousy stories they're trying to put out there. Because they do have something with Young and the Restless, something in common with Young and the Restless, in that it's just boring at times. But EastEnders also just has some big issues. Like it was a toss-up which one was worse for me in October between Young and the Restless and EastEnders. Because A, they were both boring, but also B, EastEnders has a lot of things that I don't like and I just think are bad for the show. You know, Young and the Restless is a shell of its former self and a lot of boring characters and nothing really going on. But I feel like if they had people that on top of that show that gave a fuck, it could be somewhat fixed to at least be more exciting. I don't think EastEnders knows how to fix itself without fucking itself up even more. And the American soap operas went through this long ago, and they started to go through this in the 2000s. Whereas I feel like the British soap operas have started to go through this in the 2010s. So it's more recent for the British soap operas to just not know how to fix itself without doing these large stunts, killing everybody off, and all that fucking nonsense that the British soap operas have become known for, really. Now, my history, if we're going to talk about British soap operas, there's some I don't watch often at all. But EastEnders is one of the two. We'll get to the other one in the future. Hopefully, I'll remember to talk about it when I get to that show. But I've watched EastEnders in its heyday, in my opinion, its best years were the early 2000s. I feel like that was the most consistently exciting time to watch EastEnders. Since about 2006, 2007, I've watched it less and less and less. And much like all soap operas, I just haven't watched a lot of soap operas over the past 5 or 6 years. I've watched EastEnders here and there over the last 6 years for sure. The last time I watched was the character Mal's return, because she was prominent in the early 2000s when I liked the show. So I watched some of Mal's return. It was subpar. And so like sometime in early 2020, I started to watch less and less, and then COVID happened, and then I just really got out of any interest of watching EastEnders, so I didn't. So, like Young and the Restless, I came into October having not seen much of this show for the past year and a half. And it's just a mess. I feel like I've come into a show where they have no direction, no idea where they need to take the show. EastEnders has no identity right now. I can't even say what the show is because I don't think the people on top know what it is. Those people on top are Kate Oates and John Sen, I believe. I don't know a whole lot about John Sen. Kate Oates is a name I know, and I don't associate it with positivity. Now, my British soap opera history isn't great compared to my American soap opera history. So I'm not even going to pretend to know all about Kate Oates' career. I just associate her with a period of Coronation Street, which was very dark and eventually way too depressing to watch. So she's on top of the channel BBC, um, as it is. So she's the one on top of that channel that carries EastEnders in England. Now, I don't know if she's the driving force behind these stories or if John Sen is. Either way, one of them needs to go and go soon because the show clearly has no identity. It's lost their ratings. And I just really don't know if it's even fixable without hurting itself, like I said at the beginning of this video. Because I just feel like British soap operas they go too far and just want to pull off stunts to help the ratings, and it's not working anymore. So they need new, fresh ideas of how to make these shows more watchable. EastEnders is currently not watchable. If Young and the Restless wasn't so boring and hard to actually get through all the episodes in October, I did not get through all the Young and the Restless episodes. Then EastEnders would be last place. The popular character of Janine returned, and much like the rest of the show, I just feel like her return so far is very flat. I'm not as big of a Janine fan as a lot, so that doesn't help either, I guess, but I still don't know. I mean, I like the character of Janine, and I feel like at least when Janine's on, those episodes are kind of more watchable because it's a character people give a shit about. So that's one positive I guess I can say. But I don't have a lot of positives in general regarding EastEnders right now. 2018 was the last time I watched fairly consistently, I think. So I saw when the character Vincent left. I didn't like it then because it was very mob heavy. Phil and Aiden. It was another year on the show that I just eventually stopped watching again. I mean, that's how I am with all these soap operas. It's not just EastEnders. I can't continually keep watching these shows like I did when I was younger because there's just a lot more television these days. But in October, they finally, they left Vincent's exit open-ended. Did he really die? I mean, they insinuated it, but we didn't know for sure. Well, we know for sure now, as Phil has revealed that Vincent really died. And I don't know. I mean, is old ass Phil the thug still working for you all? Because it ain't working for me anymore. Like, old thug badass Phil is old, and his shtick has worn tired for EastEnders. It's time to give Phil a rest in general. Phil leaving or being killed off is not the worst thing for the show, in my opinion. I'm just saying. Another problem with this show for me is the character of Gray. So they did this story with Gray, and in my off and on viewing, I saw some of it where Gray was the abusive husband, I believe, of Chantel, and eventually killed her. There was some good reviews for that story from the press at that time. But in classic modern British soap opera, they decided to, drag out the character of Gray way too long. It's also a fucking classic Kate Oates fashion to drag out the psycho for too long. So yeah, Gray still on the show, gotten away with killing Chantel, killed somebody else, and is still out there now. like they turn their villains into serial killers basically, and the shit gets old. It gets old. It just could have been a good story that they told. If they wanted to tell an abusive story, then they should have wrapped it up and Gray should have gotten his fucking fate a long time ago. Gray should have paid for his crimes a long time ago. Chantal died over a year ago, and Gray is still out here living. So I don't know. Like, it's way past time to wrap up the Gray story. I feel like since they're clearly out of ideas for any story, that they're just keeping Gray around as some sort of intrigue for the show. But that lost its intrigue, in my opinion, a long time ago because I came back to the show and I'm like, oh my God, Gray's still fucking out here. Who gives a fuck? It's a problem with the soap operas in the bottom of my rankings. Is who gives a shit about a lot that is going on these shows? So that is why EastEnders is at number 10. I could probably go on naming more negatives to the show right now because it truly is a mess and there's truly no direction. But I'm going to stop there because I got to move on to the other 9 soap operas yet to be listed. But yeah, like I said, it's been a toss up between Young and the Restless and EastEnders. Which one deserved the bottom? I gave it to Young and the Restless because it is mind numbingly boring. But EastEnders is right there on the verge of being the worst soap opera in the world.